Not all superheroes wears capes. Some wear wellies. Wellies.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the James Conway Experience. Now, if you've been watching from the beginning, you will probably know that regenerative farming is something that I'm very, very interested in. It's something that I'm studying and trying to implement. I don't feel that I'm in a position yet to dictate to people what they should and shouldn't do, but there is a wonderful group working in Ireland at the moment. It's called the Green Hearts Society, and one of the leading members of that is Joan O'Connell. I was recently on her farm where I met her nephew, Darragh, who gave a talk on Korean natural farming that I can't begin to describe. It was that mind-blowing. I've looked into it a lot since. I'm still mind-blown by it. He will be at the festival down here, himself and some of his buddies who are bringing this practice to Ireland. We're lucky enough to have him here on the show this evening. I would recommend every young man and woman who intends to farm in Ireland over the next 10 to 20 years to listen very closely. If you have massive fertilizer bills and you would like to get rid of them, tonight is the night you need to listen very closely. So, Darragh, thank you for coming all the way from Cork.
Yoo-hoo.
You're a legend, so yeah.
One I said, long live the natural farmer.
Yes. Darragh, tell us a bit about yourself first and foremost, because we'll get into the detail a little bit later on, but you're just a really, really interesting character, and how you've got into this line of farming and the work you're doing for farmers around the country, and that it has to be commended. But where did it all begin?
In birth from my mother, thank God. Yeah, I suppose I was raised outside Blarney there in the countryside to two parents who both grew up on dairy farms. And back in those days, I suppose, they were all able to go to, my grandfathers were able to send all their kids to college and things like that. But yeah, sorry, now I'm going to take a second to ground myself. It's hard to get into this topic like from start to finish. But yeah, I wasn't raised on a farm, but both my parents had a grow for the land, I suppose. So I was always aware of nature. My father was always making compost, and my mother loved science and figuring things out, so she had an aptitude for that. But I didn't really look to the natural world until I got sick when I was sick when I was younger, because it was a manifestation of just bad mental health, in Ireland, which just can be inherited, I think.
Yeah.
So that kind of started my journey. I ended up getting actually sick when I was in college. I was in college in UL, and I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called hypocortisolemia. I think it's related, or would have been Addison's disease if it had continued. And I had to drop out of college then, like with all my friends. They were going through their phases, and the next thing was college, and then job, house. And then I had to look at my health for the first time, because, I suppose, like any kid in Cork, I was just out in the countryside. Like, my best friend was a slitter, I suppose, off the wall, and I couldn't play hurling anymore.
What is that like for a young man? Because, as you said, when you're that age, health is probably the last thing that you're thinking about. It's a big thing to be hit with when you're young like that,
especially when you're younger and there's no one there to balance out the hormones hopping off the walls. Like, there's no guide for you to navigate through this whole molasses, I suppose. But yeah, it was tough. It was definitely tough, and I didn't really respect my mental health. Even though I did know what healthy eating was, but I didn't. I was eating big bowls of pasta after games, and I was ended up with big blocked old belly like at all times. And then during the leaving cert, just the stress of the leaving cert, because I was so unwell with probably my mental health. You know what I mean? I was just eating. Everybody was just eating Mentos from the filling station down the road. So like you're just built to be stressed, when you're eating that much shit. And if you already had a predisposition for depression or anything like that. You know, it mixed in with like new nutrition that isn't nutrition. Leads to a recipe for disaster. So my health came first, and then got a rude awakening then when I got a diagnosis, and moved to Canada. Then that summer, dosed to the nines on medication. All my friends were going on a J1, so I said, we'll go to Canada anyway and see how it is. But I suppose I realized quickly enough after about 2 months that it gave me loads of energy where I had nothing. But it was false energy. You know, it was a false hormone, and I was finding it very hard to sleep. Like, and I was, you know, just trying to fit in with the 8 other lads that were living like rats in a basement, you know, in Vancouver to have a summer and working away. So, so I had some moments out there. It was nice to be 8,000 miles away from home, especially when, you know, a lot of your pain might manifest from being Irish or just waking up here, like, you know, in this magical island that we can feel. But it was amazing. And then I just met some very good people like that were there for me at the time. Like, you know, I kind of opened. I remember one day I opened up. It was the first time. So I went over the first summer and then realized I had to do something. So I came home and I changed my diet. And like I just started reading flat out on my 21st birthday. I was like, I got to get this done. Do you know, I need to get off this shit. So I started looking at microbiology and the microbiome, and I started fasting, and I started just eating fats and proteins and greens, you know, stuff that my grandmother would recognize as food. And I saw a lot of results. So then when I went over the second time, I actually moved over by myself for like a month, and it was the first time that I ever, I suppose, didn't talk to an Irish person for like a month. And that was an eye opener. And I remember I was kind of lonely, wandering around the place. But I wasn't lonely, I was enjoying it, like people watching and saying nothing. And then went down to a beach, and then I met this fella, Diego Ramdeen. Shout out to him. He won't be listening, I don't know, he's Costa Rican. But he said his brother had a similar thing. And he said to look at the book, When the Body Says No by Dr. Gabor Mate. So I suppose I read that, and it's about like psychoneuroendocrinology or something, you know. But it's about more so about the commonalities between diseases, you know, within your psychological profile. Like, you know, certain people will get certain diseases because of their oppressions. So then I started to look at that, and then I started to get really into meditation. And I had done meditation one time before I got a diagnosis when I was really low. I suppose my grandmother bought me a meditation retreat down in Zogchimbera in the end of the world. And I knew how to meditate. So then I just went into that, did loads of breath work, and just ate the healthiest stuff, worked in health food restaurants over in Vancouver and in catering and stuff, so I could kind of supplement that. Did a bit of labour as well, and then I was like, Jesus, there's easier ways. For me anyway, you know, because I wasn't so inclined that way. But it was an amazing, it still is an amazing journey, but that was like the catalyst for the whole thing. And I think really the healing really came from, there's all these diets and things like that, but it's more so about connection to how many times you can interact with your food source, you know. And, you know, are you cooking your food yourself, or are you getting it from a packet? Like, because you can buy not the greatest quality of food, but, you know, if a grandmother makes it and makes it with love, it'll be damn nice, you know. And I wouldn't do that. And, you know, the society isn't built that way. Like, so I taught myself to cook, and I think that was, you know, everyone asked me about diets and stuff like that, but I think learning to cook and learning to respect my food and knowing that my body doesn't actually need sugar all the time, and that I can survive 2 or 3 days without food, it really helped. So I'm a bit lost there now, but.
How important is fasting? Because it seems to be making a big return. There's a lot of people talking about it with regards to fairly serious illnesses that, you know, water fasts, food fasts, all the rest of it. Have you found it effective?
Absolutely. The fasting process, this is the only time in our history as Irish people anyway that we have such readily access to food. Like, we have a history of fasting and oppression, and we were strong back then. So like, we don't need as much calories. You know, we're built for, so actually, like, you know, if you go back into the, you know, the genes of the human or whatever, like, you know, we're built and designed to fast, or else we wouldn't have survived this far, you know, into the soft lifestyle that we have now, like, you know.
Because that's one of the things I was looking at. I can't quite remember him now, but we'll say he's a historical nutritionist or that. But it was a fierce
Dr.
interest.
Weston Price, is it?
That could be the man, is right. Yeah,
The
and he
dentist.
basically the modern body retains everything because, how would you say it? The modern body is still a throwback to an ancient body that thinks, eat it all now because you're never getting this abundance again.
Yeah.
So
And it's a false abundance then as well, because you see, we're not, why people are, they're filling a void that can't be filled because there's no nutrition in the food, do you understand me? So
yes.
you're just going to constantly eat and eat because you're trying to actually hit all the micro and macro minerals that you'd get from a natural diet. And it's exactly that. Like, do you know what I mean? We went from, even 2 generations ago, or 1 generation ago in the 80s in Ireland, it was a different story. Like, you ate when you got it. Like, in the boarding schools, if there were spuds on the plate, they'd be fighting for it. Like, so like, and they grew up very healthy, a healthy nation. And then you look at our generation, then they say we're so weak, and the millennials are all this and all that. But like, we're the first generation to grow up with this level of, choice and abundance in one way, but it's actually hurting us. And yeah.
How damaging is processed food?
How damaging?
Yeah.
Jesus, it depends. It depends. There's like things like they say the dirty dozen and the clean 15, So like, if you're eating plants that are grown in conventional systems and they're like, say strawberries, for instance, they're actually up above the ground. So like, they're gonna, if there's pests, they're gonna spray directly onto the fruit then as well, and that's gonna be absorbed into the nutrition. And then, like, say spuds, you can't, like, I'm sure there's bad spuds out there, but like, you can't. They're not generally spraying down into the spuds. They're in the soil, we'll say. But still, it's a cycle of nutrition then as well. Like, so like the plant will so there's levels to it. Like, do you know what I mean? You can test all that as well, and it's great.
Because I've always wondered that an awful lot of the perception of very healthy food, I can't help but think if you're eating food out of season that has travelled from a very, very far away place, it had to get a treatment of some description. Because I only know it from my own experience. There's an orchard out there. You take that apple, the least little bump or indentation, you will have a mark straight away. And apart from that, it's going off very rapidly. You really need to eat it or do something with it. If it's a cooking apple, cook with it. So when I see an apple from a very, very distant place, I can't help but think, there's a great shine off of you, and I don't think it's off the tree it came. Is there a danger with that we're eating food out of season and it has been treated?
Absolutely. Like, sure, if you're going to get food to Ireland, like, we're the buys at milk and beef and stuff like that, but we're not producing pineapples, like,
Yeah.
And there is like, dangers with that. Once you eat processed food, everyone knows that like, and we don't know any of the context in which it's grown, like none of it,
Yeah.
And that's no fault on the people who are growing the farm. Like, I support all farmers doing their work and things like that, but it's just more so you just need to be aware of like where it's from. Did your grandmother recognize it as food?
Yeah.
If she didn't, then it's probably not going to do you too good. Like, I'm sure, like, there's great things. Like, I remember Nan was telling me there, the first time coffee came to Cork, like, there was a waft around the place, and like, there is things that we can add to our diet now. We don't have to live like in the famine either, like, but as long as if it's grown healthily and if it's grown by yourself, especially, like, the amount of interaction you have with that food, and when you actually know what's alive in the ground, you know that you have they're alive too, and you're eating something that's alive rather than you're eating something that's just barely kept alive, if you understand me.
Is there a psychological element to it too with regards to nutrition? Because I can't, a couple of occasions here with lamb and pig and stuff like that, and I've had a dinner where it was the spud you grew, the cabbage you grew, and the animal you killed. I don't know, it's just a very warm feeling inside where you're like, yeah, I
That's
know.
nutrition then
Yeah.
as well. You see, did you use nitrogen on those potatoes? Did you
No,
use-
no.
Did like so you grew them in your own soil?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well then, like, you see, it's the microbes, and that's what we're here to talk about, I suppose.
Well,
But-
let's
but
jump
they,
on to that.
They
is
they
right.
make the nutrition, you know. So the microbes, yeah.
Well, give me a baseline, so because I think it'd be fair to say the Korean natural farming is based predominantly on microbiology and bringing it forward.
Absolutely.
So for the person like myself, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, what is microbiology? What's going on in the soil that we can't see? Do you know?
Well, microbiology is everywhere. Like, microbiology, in my belief, is the energy that is life. Do you know? So, like, if you look at every layer of reality, there's microbiology, and there's life and death. They have less of a concept of it than us. You know, there's these things eating other things, and they're happening on us and in us and on our skin, and like it's the energy, it's the life, the biology, the oomph, and like it's a very hard concept for people to grasp, you know, because it's smaller than what we can see. But then you have to trust and know that there's deeper things that make this reality, you know, grow. And I suppose we came from microbiology, like, do you know what I mean? We came from this place was just a big rock, you know, Mother Earth, and then there was the sea and things, and there was volcanoes and madness, and then there was ancient bacteria, you know, that were able to survive in these mad environments, and then they became a bit more, and then they realized they were adaptable, and they could, you know, if it was a bit hotter there, they'd, you know, adapt to that, and then eventually the sea got a bit colonized, and then I don't know how fungi got there, but fungi were on land before plants, so the whole land was just rock and earth and big mushrooms, basically. And then we'll say when life kind of started to develop in the sea, then like algae or something, maybe some ancient form of those things came to land and associated with fungi, and they made this beautiful symbiosis, which started kind of the natural world as we know it, you know. So we came from these smaller things. Like, we're actually made of trillions of guys, like trillions, and they make our reality, they make our hormones, they do everything, you know. And the deeper you look, the more you'll find. And it's just,
Would you find that we're pretty well related to a mushroom?
yeah, well, like, we are, like, you know, I don't have a fact checker here there now, so I'm not
Yeah.
going to throw out all the statistics, but like, yeah, a lot of our genome comes from that. Like, sure, if we came from bacteria, then we are the same intelligence in them, and they are the things that run us, do you know? So that's what I realized when I was sick, and when I was maybe in Leaving Cert and depressed and eating Mentos and whatever, like, thought hurling was the only thing in life. I realized then, you know, when I started to nurture, like, myself, that, like, I was like, holy God, I didn't even know who I was. And still it's revealing itself to me to this day, because, like, I just get to work with, like, some of the most beautiful families and farmers across the country that are doing things the right way, and then I get more, it feels like I'm getting more intelligent, not intelligent in the head way, but like, I feel like, you know, my body's getting nicer, I have less pains than I did when I was 19, you know, I feel more vital, I'm able to talk to you on a podcast, like, do you know what I mean? You wouldn't have the conversation with me when I was 19, you know?
Yeah. So microbiology is working everywhere. So it's in our stomachs, it's under the soil, it's basically everywhere.
Yeah.
And like, I can stick with that concept, because even there, if you stick out your hands, there will be microbes eating the outer layer of skin as you speak. Do you know? It's a constant cycle.
And the things that actually run our cells, the mitochondria. I didn't do biology for Leaving Cert, but I'm sure people have heard it. It's like the powerhouse of the cell. Like, that was an actually ancient form of bacteria that started the cell powerhouse. Like, it's called an archaea, I think. Yeah. But
Well, we won't
go too scientific.
We don't want to lose everyone on it. But microbiology is the basis of it.
So microbiology, yeah. So it's just the pump of life, and then, like, the soil is like, you know, when you go to a rainforest, or say, just picture yourself in a forest, you know, and like with loads of leaf litter, you know, a really old forest, native forest, you know, and you're just kind of skipping along the ground, and you feel a bit light and bubbly, and you're like, oh, this is lovely, like, you know. and like and then you step out, maybe out into the boglands or like, you know, a daubie field, a compacted field, and it's just like, you know, it's a clap, it's solid.
Yeah.
But then, you know, when you're in the forest, you feel all good and there's loads of air under your feet. And it's the microbiology that's creating the air in life, and oxygen is kind of... So basically the roots have formed a symbiosis with... symbiosis just means a relationship, we'll say, with the fungi. And then the fungi get all the nutrients for like nearly all the plants, every plant in the world really, apart from like broccoli. So like, and this is a thing that has been forgotten. They control... They're like the masters of, you know, all this carbon stuff that is talked about in the news and stuff like that. These are the guys who can actually store carbon safely in our grounds.
On that point,
yeah,
we live in a world now where we're constantly berated about carbon.
Yeah. Carbon's just a battery.
But how come absolutely no leader of a nation is speaking about microbiology with regards to trying to sequester this carbon?
I would say it's more... I'd say they wouldn't know yet. Do you know, it like microbiology and the thing that I'm doing now, like, do you know what I mean? It's not like I can go to college for this properly yet. Like, you know, there just no... Because it's really just a very new thing, you know? And especially with green natural farming, it's only been translated, you know, a certain amount of years, you know?
Is it that new of a thing?
No, it's not a new thing. It's not a new thing at all. This is definitely ancient technology. Like, you know, it's very intuitive. Like, even in Ireland, they used to clean the milking parlours with sour milk.
Yes.
And then, you know, that's lactobacillus, and it eats smells and outcompetes pathogens and leaves this lovely kind of cheesy smell that wears off, and then everything is kind of clean around you. So like, our grandfathers knew this, and you know, when we teach the courses and we do stuff like that, like a big thing that comes up is like that, oh, that's a smell that I remember, you know, because this is just a remembrance, you know.
I can't help but think you're on a really good journey, because you know what they spoke about in the Amazon and that the whole terra preta thing and all of that.
Biochar.
I reckon you're on track for that. I really do.
Because
there's no... Those people were way advanced. And I think the advancement that they had more than ourselves is through the usage of certain things. They were aware of things that perhaps the sober mind isn't aware of. You know?
Yeah.
And I can't help but think, looking at that kind of soil or that was... spiritually,
but they were connected. The plants told them what to do, and that's what this lens of farming has taught me. Thankfully, is how to be rich from my own ditches in a way. You know, how to look at the world through a lens of how to harness Mother Nature's energy, and then, like, you know, exponentialize that into lovely food for myself. Because like, I have no experience growing food, like, you know, I've experienced loving the microbes and reading loads of books and stuff like that, and then I know how to do this very well, and I can grow food now. You know, I can eat my own food.
But you're having serious results.
Yeah, I'm having great results.
You know?
Yeah, but there's great results all over the country, like, really. But that's just the way it is. You know, when they say rewilding and stuff like this as well, you know, they, like, the earth just will. So say if we all died now, this farm eventually would turn into, like, you know, trees. Do you know, the sallies will come up first, and then maybe a few birch, and then eventually you get an oak first. Like, so, like, the world wants to go to this natural state, and then when you know how to, you know, love nature and how to use her powers, you can speed up that cycle. And we might need to start using these things to do that, because, you know, if we've depleted a soil with so much dependence on chemical fertilizer, like, you know, we actually have to treat the soil kind of like a drug addict in a way, you know what I mean? Because you have to give back the life into the soil for it even to have a function, you know? And that's the only thing that, yeah.
Right, well, tell me, so, and I don't want jumping too much, but I'm very interested in the topic, but it's old. We know it's old.
Yeah, I can't tell that yet though.
Right. Okay. Well,
I don't
I'll
know.
tell you what I'll do is I'll say it.
Yeah,
It's old.
It is. It is.
But along comes a character. I think he was Japanese, or that was he?
So, so I'll talk about the actual history of Korean natural farming there for a second.
Yeah,
just
perfect.
To quote it in there. Sorry, listeners. There, I'm actually grew up in Blarney, like, so disposition for shit talk. So, like, yeah. So in Japan, there was a fella Manasobo Fukioka. Is he was one of the guys, I think. But in Japan, they were kind of fascist in the 50s, and they were very spiritual in Eastern nation. Sorry, I'm going to get all the facts wrong now, but I'm just going to give a glossary. And basically, they were getting the same price for all the vegetables or something along these lines, and they had to differentiate and produce more and produce healthier food, and they couldn't afford, say, inputs, in those societies. So they knew that the forest was a more intelligent place than them, and in some, Japanese words like for mycelium and stuff, it's translated like precious one, or I don't know, something like that. But they knew that a forest was a place that a human couldn't enter as well. They knew it was a sacred place, but they knew you don't have to put chemical fertilizer on the trees to grow. So there's an intelligence there which can be transferred into your garden. So there was lots of these lovely, intuitive, but they were very, they're Japanese, they're spiritual, but they're also like, they're rocket scientists, and, they're very industrial, like, so they're very looking at things through a microscope, like, way back. And then there's a fella, Master Cho from Korea, and he realized that this information might be gone and lost soon, so he went over, I believe, and gathered the information from the people that he could, and he was a chemical engineer, and he put it into a small green book of recipes as to how to do everything for your plants, your pigs, your animals, whatever. You have a life cycle, and you can treat them with all your hooches, we'll call them, or all your microbial nutrients and solutions, and things to boost their health and things to boost the plant's health. So he started that, and I think you can do a degree in Korean natural farming over there. But they run, like, a little section of Korea, I believe, or on these practices, and they've done he's amazing, like your man Master Cho. Like, really, he died last year. He was 94, and I suppose it only got translated to English then briefly. In Hawaii, they have to ship in their fertilizer out in Hawaii, so it's not as sustainable for them to do it, and the farmers' margins were shite. So basically, I think some governmental body sent over like 14 young farmers or all sorts of farmers that would be interested to do this Korean natural farming with a translator. And one of my teachers, Chris Trump, was one of those. And basically, they sat in lectures, and they were looking for microbiology and for answers for the farm, and your man was lecturing about love the whole time. Yeah. And but it's a very foolproof kind of plan once you follow the instructions correctly. Like,
so where did you do your learning of this?
So I suppose when I got sick, and then when I actually got off the medication, and then and I got everything tested, and it was all great, like, and on my own steam, like, which is amazing. But then I traveled around then and loved life, and I just kept researching. I knew I had to do something, but I was just kind of studying like epigenetics and things that I couldn't even spell beforehand, like, and just reading because I wanted to help. And then I suppose I was in COVID in Berlin with my friend, and I got the call to come back to Ballydesmond then, because my grandfather had Alzheimer's, and in a way I wanted to heal him, because they've been very nice to me in my time. And 3 kilometers away in Ballydesmond is, a lockdown, like, is tough, for 80-year-olds. So I really wanted to help my grandmother, with the care. So and I wanted to do, that was kind of a stressful time, and I just loved the land, so I just got addicted to the rushes and to the blue clay, like, and everyone was saying you'll never make a pound of the ground out here, like, and I really researched it. I got a license to grow hemp the first year. I put it into a field of rushes, and it just did amazing things to the field. And I had no idea what I was doing. I had a good intention, like, but it literally, I harvested some of it, but it wasn't for that. It was for, like, to see if it would it do something to the ground. And then I saw what it did to the ground, and I was like, right, you're going to have to do something now, John. So, yeah, I studied with this really scientific company. They're probably the longest running like training company with microbiology, the Soil Food Web with Dr. Elaine Ingham. And she's been doing this for many years at every scale. And she kind of trains people to look at the soil and be their own kind of microbiologist, we'll say, and how to create amendments and how to apply them to certain acres and all these things. And the one thing she said throughout the lectures was, you know, if you look through the microscope and you see a fungal spore, which is like a fungal seed, give yourself a tap on the shoulder. Well done. That's what you're looking for. And I had done a lot of the compost with her, and it was amazing. And I learned so much. I'm so thankful for that. But then I knew there was this thing called Korean natural farming, because I kind of started messing with it a few years ago, or just when I landed in, and I knew I had to do everything. So I did this course with NOTS, National Organic Training Skills Net, and our course is on that there now as well. And they're up here in your side of the country in Drumshanbo. So Sean McClone is keeping the thing flowing. So then I said I had to do it. So I actually drove off from Bear that morning, and I did the 5-day course with Tom Stack, my good friend now, thank God, and Chris Trump, our teacher.
Yeah.
And yeah, then I knew what to do. And after messing around for a year and a half and looking at things under the microscope and not seeing the results that I wanted, to what I had made after the course, because I knew kind of what to do. I made a small thing like that, and I looked at it under the microscope, and I knew that was probably more powerful than every shovel of shite that I tried to make beforehand.
Yeah.
And that's what I knew was true. And then I started just applying it, and I'm not a good gardener, like all the plants that die, and then I just put some magic stuff onto them and they just come back to life. So yeah. So I did the 5-day course, and then I've just been natural farming, collecting. So the whole process is about 80% of this is about the indigenous microorganism, and that's a mouthful. And I will tell you a quick funny story about one job I did there in Kerry, and we were inside in some meeting thing, and we were planting trees or whatever, and it's fairly funny. One of the fellas couldn't say microorganism, he was saying microorgasm. But,
an indigenous one.
Indigenous microorganism. But so that's a mouthful. But so the indigenous microorganisms are the things that kind of grow the trees. Like, what grows a tree like? Do you know?
Well, I suppose the biology answer is sunlight and heat and water and...
Yeah, but you see, the sunlight and the heat, what actually gives it all its life from underneath, what makes the roots grow down, because whatever you see above, like if there's a huge oak tree, like it has to have a root zone to match, but we've cut the head off of that, like we don't look at the roots anymore, and like even the old Celts, like as so above as so below, it's in our lore. So like they knew back then as well, that you have to treat the roots right, and that's where the intelligence is. So basically they think the roots just grow down, but how do roots eat? Do you know how the roots grow? Then so basically there's solar panels and on the leaves, and they send in the sunlight, and they kind of make a bit of a structure of the plant. But then there's excess stuff, which the tree then sends down to the fungi and says to the fungi, come here to me, would you have a bit of molybdenum for me? Would you have a bit of calcium for me? Would you have something for me? And then the fungi is a root. It's kind of like a root as well, and expands out. And it'll just go down to any sand, silt, or clay, and it'll just use its powerful enzymes to bring that nutrient back up. And that's the kind of flow of all plants, really. And they're called myco. So these are big words now, but I'll explain them. Mycorrhizal. So myco is fungi, rhizal is root. So root fungi. So they're the things that actually, they're the life. So everyone thinks that fungi are mushrooms. That's only 1% of the equation, or less, I don't know. Do you know what actually is mycelium, which is fungal networks, the trees communicate and share, and, an immune system. It's as if me and you were attached by a web of life, and we shared the immune system,
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way that biology works,
What I found incredible when I was down the day watching yourself, and it is such a blatantly obvious concept, is you walk through the farm and you're looking at the trees, and you can tell one that's doing very well. Do you can say that tree has adapted to where it is, everything is going very well there, and then you can tell the tree where it's not going well and something has gone awry.
Yeah.
Same with fields. Most farmers around the country would say, I have a good field, I have a bad field.
The sheens of fat
yeah.
off the grass.
But the concept that you're putting forward is basically saying, go to the very good tree and collect the microorganisms from there.
Yeah.
And bring it to the bad spot and just spread it about a bit. And that's like, it seems so ludicrously straightforward, you know.
But that's why, like, it's very scientific here, like, but this whole thing has been a more spiritual journey, I've learned more science, but it's very, like, it's just connection to nature, like, and it's...
Is there moments where you're ever a tad, and I don't mean this in a silly way, you're going to ruffle a lot of feathers with this. If I was the fertilizer man, I'd be saying, well, he's a nice guy and all that, but fuck him. Like, what you're presenting is so simple.
Well, it's actually, so it's simple, but you see, it takes a lot of, like, just knowledge to do it properly right, because you could do it wrong too, like, obviously. So
I know, but what you have done, and you have to accept it too, is you've done the work.
Yeah.
You've done the donkeying, and...
Well, it's not me, like, thank God, the KDF, but in Irish circumstances...
Aye, but it's at a basis now where, for Christ's sake, mate, you do 5 days of a course and you have a fairly good handle on it, because...
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Do you ever stand...
Research is done.
That's what I'm saying.
You put it into a format where you can deliver it and teach
Yeah.
someone that, and if there's a thirst for it, they'll pick it up.
Yeah.
They'll understand it.
Because, like, what I'm trying to get at a little bit is, God is disruptive.
Yeah.
It's not disruptive to nature. It's not disruptive to a farmer or anything like that. But there's all of these industries on the basis of denying nature,
Yeah, yeah. But I think, like, even, whatever way the political economy is going and things, like, they are pushing for, like, to go towards these rewilding projects and stuff like that. Like, everyone is pushing because they know that, like, we need to step on the gas, like, and that's my intention with this whole thing, is just, like, to see if I can make a way for, because there's not many young farmers in the country, like, who would step into the farm in the country, because they know it's tough work and it's hardship, like, I'd rather the family farm, is something that the country is run on, and I just really want to go good grass and Ballydesmond, like, do you know what I mean? I want to grow big trees and I want to grow veg, and
But that's the same. I've said it on multiple different things. I want to see a rural Ireland with young couples and young kids. And
absolutely,
that's it. And the only way to do that is to make it more than a pleasant lifestyle. It has to be rewarding financially too. And what you're presenting is such a reduction in fertilizer costs that it really helps.
Yeah. It really helps. It would really help, like, a lot of people across the country, and, like, I'm just blessed to be helping lads, and for them to be ringing me excited about, biology, like, because most of the time I'm coming into the farm, like, I'm trying to explain that biology works, or that nature grows, and there's an intelligence that does that, like, but, they're like, no, like, but we're not bigger than God itself, like, by, spreading these things, like, we can't just keep not working in natural ways and expect the nature to reward us, but if you treat nature right, like, she will reward you, like.
Can I ask you a question? And you've alluded to it a little bit on the intention and stuff like that. I noticed through the years, the farmer who was in a rush and pushing and stressed and all the rest of it, it never worked for him. Every day it was a burden. Something was going wrong. The guy who kind of embraced it, took his time, realised, I can do an hour there and come back tomorrow, do an hour there. And
the slow tipper, like,
always worked out better for him.
Yeah.
The old one, more hurry, less speed,
Yeah.
I've noticed that over the years, and when we'll get to it as well. When you were describing your box for collection, we'll say,
Yeah,
mycelium,
yeah.
you were really telling people, but you have to put your intention on this.
Absolutely, I believe you need to be witnessed by nature.
Yes.
To be, able to collect this knowledge and to I don't think, like, they say, I was saying that to you earlier, there's a phrase in this, there's loads of these phrases, the shadow of the farm grows the grain, but the grain mightn't grow very well if that shadow is very stressed and, cursing out his grain, rather than the man who walks into his field at the end of the day at work just because he wants to be in the field,
Yeah.
And he wants to, embrace and be witnessed by nature, and say, Jesus, I grew this crop there now, isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
And I think, that's it's just a major thing, like, and as well, like, we are, if you were going to talk about that, we're all like, our heart is a big electromagnet, basically, like, so, like, it'll carry around, an aura, and we have all these microbes around us and everything like that. So I just, they're much more intelligent than us. I do believe that, like, even our language comes from the trees as well, like, our ancients knew this. So, like, I don't care if I sound crazy, but, like, I'll ask the tree, like, for consent in a way.
Yeah.
I'll put my hand there and
listen, mate, you don't sound crazy.
No.
Not at all, sure. Even our shaman would always say you have to ask permission.
Look, I go back to when I was, and I've met some seriously interesting characters the last couple of years, and the truth of the matter is, stuff that you thought when you were a kid, oh, that book is batshit.
Yeah.
Whereas now you're kind of like, oh, actually, no, the entire world is batshit, and that fella that I thought was mad.
But we can't run away from the batshit, man. We are Irish.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, that's why I honestly think that my sickness was because I feel like the world was trying to PC me, and I wasn't PC because I had to fucking jump. I don't know what it is. Was it still the residual from the famine or what? Like, but there's madness and all of us in this island. Like, there's a reason we're out this far west, like,
yeah,
because all the crazy lads from Europe during all those times during the Roman Empire, they were probably coming over to Ireland, like, so well, we inherited all the boys that were cracked, and that's why we're full of, it's a nation to be like, and that's why I love meeting the farmers. I love meeting the farmers and love meeting, and I've no bad feelings if they're spreading or spraying Roundup, even though I know that the harmfulness of it, but I just think, like, that there's just so much power in our country, like, I just think there's so much, like, love, and there's still a community in this country, you know what I mean? And we're just, every hill is named, like, because there was people up there having crack,
Yeah.
And you can feel that. But, like, it's not the same these days. Like, all my friends are in Australia, like, you know what I mean? And they think, like, geez, Darragh's after getting a beard and long hair, like, and he's growing tomatoes, like.
So you're saying that being well travelled as well, so you've been about and you've been to other places, and you feel there is something different here, do you?
I do, like, but you're like, that's just the lineage, like, look my skin
you're in the beaten heart of the world here, so
fact, we've skin like Banya, like, we're meant to be here, like,
that's right, says there, putting all the connections together lately. You know how the Indians would be on about the heart chakra and all that, and then the heart chakra is green, isn't it?
Absolutely. And when you walk in a polytunnel that's glowing green because you sprayed it with the right stuff, yeah, my heart just delights. And because I was such a heady person, and you can see that I'm a heady person, I can retain all this information. But, like, since I've been happier doing all this, I'm just, like, living in here, because that's a nervous system too, like,
Well, I do often say it there, we do forget that people lived before all of this technology and that. And I just speak to, and it's a funny thing, a lot of people, me mum and dad's generation and that, and they'll tell you about the hardship and this, that and the other. But a lot of the time, I think what they're doing is they're downplaying what they lost. And I had a good conversation with my dad about this.
Nice way to look at it, actually.
Yeah. Out in a field with your brothers for 2 hours after school, and fair enough, you weeded a bit and all that, and then you find yourself in a position decades later where everyone is spread around the globe. You don't really speak to each other. You're in a rush all the time, and you look back, and it's kind of like counter nostalgia. They kind of go, oh, them was the bad old days. I'm better now. And I think a lot of it is, you're not. you know that if I had a little time machine here and says, would you like to go back to that?
To the simplicity and the connection. Yeah, because like our time on the phone in the last 20 years, like, you know, has gone up to the max, and our time in nature has gone down.
Yeah.
But I think that's coming back. Like, I think there's, you know, I just came from 2 farms there. Summerhill Farm there down in Limerick, Tom Stack, that man ban, and then Fergal Smith in My Hill. And, you know, they've these mad organic children going around, you know, doing what they should, like, but they're so smart and they're so aware. They're working on the farm all the time, and they know how to turn off the irrigation lines, milk the cows, you know, bring in the cows and do everything.
Yeah.
And like, you see them, they're covered in dirt, covered in muck, and it's, you know, it's healthy for them. Like, they're so smart and vibrant, you know, the way the kids should be, like. But, you know, in my circumstance, I suppose I didn't grow up with a farm completely, like, and I was just kind of locked in on Ireland, like, and then you're just in a concrete room then for the rest of the day, like, rather than getting out and interacting with the world and interacting with microbes to help you, you know?
Well, like, when you think about it logically, do you know, is it 300 years as a species we've been kind of
nurtured?
Well, not nurtured. But is it? Like, you go through...
Well, not for us. Not for us. Maybe in France when they have floral bouquets of wine.
Yeah, Ireland. Yeah, I suppose if you go, you can probably take a direct line definitely to the 20s, 30s in Ireland before anything really was
say
pushed.
so. Yeah.
Do you know? But God above, when you think of how many hundreds of thousands of years as a species you were earthing every day, you had no magnetic shit going on.
They called it progress.
Oh, progress, yeah. We've all had progress, yeah. So anyways, you're bringing this back. So tell us the first step. So there's how many steps involved in this, and then we'll go through the steps.
So there's a lot of steps in the whole thing, but as I said, 80% of the process is the indigenous microbes. We call them the IMO.
Yes.
Just to keep it simple. So we'll say IMO 1 is the collection process, the asking for nature's intelligence, and you collect with kind of like a wooden hardwood untreated box, you know, with holes in the bottom of it, and they do it in Korea then with rice. So they'll parboil rice and they'll put it into that box, and they'll rat and rodent proof it, and then they'll take that box out to the woods to sweep away the leaf litter, you know, that I was talking about, where the lovely air is, and there's a massive beautiful tree that you like, and you basically go down to the lovely beautiful soil where it smells unbelievable and you see loads of insects, and you will actually maybe see fungi as well, these white threads, and you drop your box in there, you close it up, and you kind of rainproof it, throw a little wire and a plastic bag over it, and that mycelium then will, or the fungi from that grows the tree, or the intelligence, or whatever you want to call it, will come up and start to like eat the rice, you know, and as well all the microbes from the air around the tree will start to colonize the rice, and then you'll get a big box of fungi, and it'll smell like bread in the forest, like bacon bread, and it'll be at like 43 degrees, and it'll be looking straight back at you saying, "How are you?"
What time period are you talking?
So then that's the skill of the whole thing. Then it's different. So your climate, time. So 5 to 7 days, or like 5 to 10 days sometimes in Ireland, and it depends on the substrate. Like, I'm using grain now that we grew like through these processes as well, so it's a more circular kind of thing. But then, you know, the thought process is then to, like, you know, have collections from different times a year and all sorts of things. But so you'll have this big block of, you know, fungi, so the rice will be hot and it'll be stitched together, and you really wanted to have it like white and hot and everything and lovely and smell really good. If it doesn't smell good, throw it away.
That's one of the things I'm going to say as well. When we were down at Joan's place, each process, this man had a live sample, do you know, a sample of each process. And it's one of those, what I will say to you here is, you don't have to come to the festival, he's at the festival, but you should go to him. You need to see it, touch it, smell it to really get it.
So that's why it's going to be worthy to do this. So I'll just go very brief, and I won't go through like all the complete instructions or whatever. But it is just taste, touch, and smell. And then I'll just promote the course then as well. Like, we have, you can go on to NOTS again, National Organic Training Skills Net, and I think it's under Korean Natural Farming or Natural Farming Ireland, and it's a 5-day course down in Limerick. In the guy who brought it over here, Tom Stack, the madman, and yeah, that's where we teach to touch, taste, and smell. Because, like, you know, when my teachers came over from America, like, you know, there's all these big fancy words and things like that. But then when they actually asked me to, you know, listen, like, was when they were like, okay, feel this, feel the way that is, smell that, and then, you know, so it's very tactile. Like, anyone could do it. Kids, anyone. Yeah.
So IMO 1 is...
IMO 1, collection. IMO 2, storage of your collection. So you want to put that thing asleep so you can wake it up and expand it out, you know? So we use brown sugar for that then. And you just kind of mix in brown sugar. And basically what will happen is the brown sugar causes osmotic pressure, which just means it's going to pull the moisture from the microbes that live in the fungi and everything. And they need the moisture to survive. So then they all go sleep, like a big dinner. And then you can kind of wake them up with more moisture again then. But so that's your stable collection, we'll say. That's your kind of mother culture of...
Store that. Is that like your base?
That's your base, mother culture of intelligence then, and you try to get them from different places and different heights.
Is it like yeast, really? Would you look?
It's
similarities.
It's yeast. There is yeast, but you see, it's like under an oak tree. There's more genetic information and life than just yeast. Yeast is everywhere. But so if they want to look up things like scientifically, there's a book there. It's a good picture book. If you want to promote, I'll promote this fella. Here we go.
Just announce the title of that there for anyone who's listening, because
regenerative soil microscopy with Matt Powers. I could probably even show a picture. But yeah, there's loads of these critters and all sorts of things. That's actually a little fungi in the soil there. I don't know, can you see that? But you see there, it's treading along there. And then we'll say, just for argument's sake, the root was here, and then the root's going up or whatever, and you're getting your exchange then through those things. There's loads. This is a great book.
Is that the same system that trees use? We'll say if one tree needs water, they reckon like...
These are the moisture
other
guys.
trees can actually go, hang on now, that tree over there needs water, and kind of can send stuff that way. Is that the same kind of system?
Exactly that. They're really good at water retention, so that's why maybe your plants are failing in the garden, because they, you know, if you get a drought, you know, you need the immune system underground, so then the fungi are able to kind of drop down and be the immune system of the plant, and then kind of keep it alive. Like, that's what I said. I'm not a great, like, you know, market gardener, like potter or anything like that, but I plant everything with this, and then they have an immune system and they get a hard life to start, but then I give them the good stuff and then they're flying.
I had this argument with a vegetarian in England one time.
Can you see a picture of some of the collection there yourself?
Yeah. I've seen your one, I know. So basically, I'll describe it here. So you have the timber box.
Yeah.
You have the substrate material, the crop or that.
Yeah.
And then you have this lovely plume of... Put you in mind a little bit when bread, you know, the old cake on the window years ago, and
the sourdough
was there to come on it, do you know?
Yeah.
So it's hairy, it's fuzzy,
it's
all
moldy,
the rest
like, it looks like a mold.
So listen, that's my collection. Then I IMO to that brown, what is it, Demerara or brown sugar?
Brown sugar, wait for wet.
How long can I store that for then before I decide?
50. Well, they say, our teacher says anyway 15 years, and then he says you could probably do it infinitely, like if you just keep topping it up with sugar, like. But yeah, so it's an intelligence that will store, like. But then so IMO 3 then is waking up the party. Basically, we teach you then how to make these 5 nutrients to feed the fungi. And then you just take the stuff from your storage collection and you put it into water. So you took away water, and now you're adding water, and then, you know, to come back to life. And basically the whole thing is then about waking up that party and making kind of like a small boutique compost pile with like oats and wood chip. And you leave it have a party for a week, and we train you how to do it then. And then the beauty of this is the IMO4 then is that you wake up this thing and it becomes like that big fungal mat, you know, and it's alive at 49 degrees. It's like a baby, you have to mind it. And then, but that's too intelligent. You've just woken up forest intelligence, and you're going to try to grow like celery in your garden. It'll get some bang, you know what I mean? So then you have to, or like if you're growing grass in your place, like it hasn't seen that intelligence in a while. So you have to then integrate it into your own soil and things.
But for anyone younger that's listening to this, there is an outrageous market for these IMOs. I've researched this since
Oh, have
I
you?
was
You've
speaking
been on
to Cher.
ChatGPT.
I don't use it. I won't give him GI. But what's it called? IMO 2s, IMO 3s. There is people willing to buy it because they want to try an IMO from a different part of the world and stuff like that.
Well, you see, the beauty about it is that we just keep it completely, like Ireland is so small, you wouldn't bring over a French microbe into Sligo, like, you know.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of, I think there's great opportunities for young people, you know, of this country, like if they want to integrate into, like, you know, helping the system.
I thought it was such a lovely hobby for a young person to be collecting this stuff. Do you know, head out to your forest park, look around and say to them, find the best looking tree and put your boxes under it and collect the stuff. Do you know?
It's retraining your senses to be trustworthy of trusting.
It really is. That's exactly what it is.
Wouldn't it be interesting to see how it affects the oak, or not the oak, but the ash dieback and that kind of stuff as well?
Are you having success?
I haven't treated it personally. It's been on my mind for the last 4 years, but I was just going to make a comment that the ash trees are looking very good this year in comparison to the last few years. There is still a lot of dead, but they've actually, there is a bit of a push in nature in the right way. But yeah, definitely these are the things that do it. Like, you fix nature's intelligence with nature's intelligence, you know, and there's miraculous stuff. I won't go into all of it, but there is miraculous stuff you can definitely do with all of these things.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a good one, and I fervently believe it. Since the first Homesteaders Hooley, since I've met yourself, Darren, and, you know, all of these other interesting characters, the farm has been going better. There's no doubt about it. The first couple of years when it was, how would you say, debt, getting stuff built, worries, troubles, stress, all the rest of it. Yeah, no, it's been going better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to keep the community, like, sure, Ireland was such a community, like, you know, we did the Save the Hay together, and then it was only the tractor that split us up, like, in a way, like, and, you know, the young lads that are on the tractors, like, you know, they're doing savage jobs, like, but, you know, it's a good time for them to start looking into this too, because, you know, there is an end point to this, is what the governments are saying, like, so.
Well, you see, the young lads on the tractors, and they do have to bear it in mind too, is there'll be a lot of changes in that over the next couple of years. There'll be a lot of automation coming in, and
I'd say so, yeah,
driving and stuff.
You wonder
like
as
that.
well, just, you know, how we're on about the intention and that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
We're gone to a stage now where it's not even the man that actually tends to the land that actually harvests it, you know.
Yeah. Well, this is an interesting one that the Amish have.
Touches it,
yeah.
You know, like
the Amish have that.
Yeah.
They'll have the tractor in the yard on the concrete and wrapping the bales and stuff like that. They won't allow it into the field. And I think there's a lot of this to it, that unless it's a person or an animal, they won't let it into the field. I think they really looked at that and says, no, you need the man or the animal involved in this, or else it's going to go bad at some stage.
Absolutely, like, sure, like, we're landing the cows, like, we need the cows we've made these fields and we've got rid of our ditches, so we need something to, you know, keep the fields alive and going, you know. And yeah,
I love animals. I don't, I was going to say it earlier on, I said it to a vegetarian in England, and it really, I won't say blew their mind, but it gave them a bit of trouble.
Yeah.
They were saying, oh, you can't do that to a sentient being, do you know? And I says, who the hell do you think you are to tell me that grass isn't sentient? And it really frigged with their heads, so it did, because I says, that head of lettuce has just as much intelligence as you.
But, maybe more.
Perhaps, yeah.
They weren't sure was that an insult or not. Like,
I'd say that they were probably contemplating, this fella is really off his head. So
yeah.
But like,
it's the power of the unseen. Then again, like, you know, the healthiest foods will have the most life forms, like, of the boys on them, like, so are you calling them not sentient either? And they were actually here before us, like, so, you know, yeah. So, like, you know, the healthy person will have more in them, diversity of microbiome, diversity of your belly, how much you have inside you will make you robust, you know, and that's why, like, our grandparents lived so long, because they weren't scared of dirt, you know, and we're scared of dirt. We're, you know.
Well, there's a very interesting point. Just on the diversity of it, you do meet people who are very, very intelligent on one subject, by God, they're not interesting because they know one subject absolutely read on it the whole lot, but they don't have much other
outlets.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, geez, that's interesting. So it is, because as you says, the best plants has all this different information in them.
Yeah.
Right, so we've done IMO 1 is the collection. IMO 2 is putting the collection to sleep.
Yeah.
IMO 3 is waking it up.
And then IMO 4 is priming it for your land. So you can do it in the bogs, or you can do it in the Golden Vale, or you can do it in Wexford even, up in Escarty.
Are we going into the territory now of where it's going to the court with priming or that?
Priming is just, it's just literally, so you wake up the party with oats and wood chip, and you have to mine this basically expanded mycelium pile, but it's too intelligent for your land, so then you want to then wake it up. So once it dries out, once some moisture leaves the pile, we'll say, this might make sense, but you try to integrate your own soil into the pile for another week, so it has another party where all the microbes are creating the heat, so that's their party and then you will say the old intelligence knows your situation and your context, so it knows it's going into blue clay or Dobby ground or
So basically you're introducing where it came from to where it's going, that they'll meet each other.
Exactly. You're trying to create this balance or this harmony, so that whatever works in your ground will, survive that next process and then thrive in your ground. You're kind of trying to train them to be hardy for your soil. You're not trying to, the microbes are smarter than us, so you're not trying to baby food them. You're trying to say, look, I want to grow cauliflowers in blue ground. Can you do that? And yeah, it's amazing. I don't grow any compost in my polytunnels. I just grow on the clay, and yeah, it's amazing. Just feed it, put layer of IMO, mimic the forest, and some mulch, and I have no idea how to grow, but I was able to feed myself there now the last long time with veg, and my friends kind of supplement all the meat and the eggs and stuff like that, and yeah, it's amazing. And when you see the things work, there's so many different recipes to this as well, which I don't want to confuse, the audience that are listening to my,
there is a
my
limitation
Blarney
on time
ravings.
and all that, yeah. Right, IMO 5 then, what are we into now?
So actually IMO 4 would be would be the main, if you can get to there, basically there's avenues for you to work with and expand that even further for whatever your context is. So that's why we go to IMO 4, and then you can do IMO 5 is where you can treat your high nitrogen material, so you can make a very beautiful market garden substrate. So you'd get say if you had good manure out here, you'd add in your IMO, you'd add in all the nutrients to give them another party, and then they'd colonize into the manure, and then you'd leave that out in October, we'll say, plant into it then the new year, and bang.
Does that work for slurry?
The IMO, yeah, it does. But you have to kind of use things that are work in, because if you think about the forest floor and then you think about slurry, there's no oxygen down in slurry. Yeah. So you have to use lads that are adapted to those circumstances. So lactobacillus is an amazing thing for slurry, and yeah, that's I love treating slurry, love trying to make it smell like kombucha. That's and if you're nitrogen, if you can smell your slurry, that's your nitrogen gas and your P's and your K's then up in the air, and they're all precious units these days by the cost of things.
It was a fierce interesting point that you made about that, because it is true, even if you do it in comparison to dung, if you put out farmyard manure, there's a smell.
Yeah.
It's not too bad.
Yeah.
It's fairly well contained.
Yeah.
Whereas, slurry, it's a pungent smell, but the smell is coming from the fact that a lot of the nutrients you thought you have are now airborne.
Yeah, nitrogen.
They're not.
Yeah, and they're even more potent than, we'll say, carbon dioxide for the, we'll say, dirt, you're leaving off nitrous oxide and stuff like that, which is potent, smelly shite, lad. I think
that's a vivid description of slurry. Good.
Potent, smelly shite, but you see, it's so potent. Then also, it can be kind of transformed into something that's not seen as a waste product, where because worms, if, as it's said, in Ballydesmond, you see seagulls follow the slurry tankers around all the time, and you see that around the country anyway, is because they're following around to eat up the worms. And
but the worms is rising, aren't they?
Yeah, because it's too toxic for them.
Yeah.
And then you see they're pulling out your bank then again because the worm, like every farmer, you know, if you shovel, if you interact with your ground, you dig your soil and you find worms, at least you have worms, say a prayer, like, you know, they're the hard workers, like, they're the guys who will eat the bad stuff and turn it into rocket fuel, like. And yeah, so that's why I think, you know, there's so much to be done with slurry. We're only at the start of it here, but seeing amazing results and people are loving it. My uncle personally, that would be the nicest story from my heart, yeah. Like, I suppose, like, he's gone through the ringer with his system, and he did the course with me down in Valley there, and he be good friends with Dad, and then did his slurry tanks then after the course, because he believed me. He was just like, he just thought I was hairy, I think. You know?
Does it change the pH of the ground itself, or
microbes start the pH? So I don't look too much. So like fungi will select for a slightly more acidic 6.7, like, you know. So the microbes, if they're imbalanced, like, the pH will be grand. Okay. You know, if you have the right balance of everything, like, obviously. But like, I don't look at pH then, like, you know. But I look at pH for other fermentations and stuff like that when I'm making them. So yeah. But my uncle loved it. Like, he was going on. He rang me afterwards anyway. He said the field, he was walking in the field and it didn't smell, and it was after, you know, it's not sitting on top as much, and he was delighted, and he was the agitator man. You know, he didn't have to bring any water up to the tank or whatever, you know. And I think he had to get one loader anyway for a prayer, but, you know, normally he'd be, you know, stressed about that time, and it kind of worked out well for him. So there's a lot of that going on, yeah.
Everyone, we are going to move to the Patreon for the next bit because it's going to be very, very interesting. Will you just show the tanks of stuff you have with you, what they are? Because we're going to get into kind of
the nitty-gritty
of it now. So it's worth your while. Sign up to the Patreon. We're going to try and get plenty more people like Darragh on who are worth listening to. So they are. So
education.
What are these three items? And then, as I says, we'll thank you, and we'll get your advertisement out for your course and that.
We've got days of milk here anyway. From good naturally farmed cows. This is
it raw? That it is.
Yeah, that's raw. And that's Oriental herbal nutrient made by these lovely guys. Give them a little flash. And that's our immune booster for, like, our plants, animals, and ourselves and our soil.
Yep.
And it's an ancient recipe, 2,000 years old. This is the stuff that I kind of treat the slurry with, actually, and I can drink it. You know, it's not bad. It's lovely, actually. It's very good for you.
We got the glasses out.
That's a probiotic.
That's just basically, yeah. So sure, slurry is shit. Like, do you know the way people go, like, to? They're like, you know, they're blocked up, like, and they get a laxative, like, do you know, that's essentially, you know, what is happening to the cows as well, because they're eating so much grain, and, you know, it's getting blocked up like that, you know. Yeah. You want to clear that out, basically.
It's a nice thing for someone to basically go, I have 5 litres of what resembles a chemical here, and I can drink it.
I know.
Do you know what I mean?
When you see that, it's not too often you see something like that. Yeah.
Let's see you do that, Mr. Roundup salesman.
Yeah.
Look at
hope.
Tell people how they can get in touch with you. You're coming up here, yourself and the 2 boys, to the Homesteaders Howley.
There's 2 other mad lads going at this. There's actually a load of mad lads doing this, but anyway, the 2 lads that are coming up, yeah.
But you'll be doing a talk both days, and
the mad part isn't a requirement. It's just
it's just inherited. It's just inherited. It's fine.
But you'll be doing a kind of hands-on, show them the box, show them each stage and all that.
Yeah, we'll walk the ditches and we'll show them where they can do this, and we'll bring up a few props then to get people involved. We won't be able to do it all in 2 days because it's madness.
Yeah.
But I suppose the main thing that we're promoting is the 5-day course is on the 16th of June. And
how does people book that?
NOTS.ie, National Organic Training Skills Net. And yeah, it's 600 quid. It's, I think, the government, or not supplement like 400 of that, but it's 5 days and it's amazing. And we've got like sound healing and breathwork on the Saturday to calm us all down, because you can see there's a lot of knowledge. But as I said, it'll be touch, taste and smell. It's like, we're trying to teach the practicalities of the situation. And then like obviously you can see I didn't get into like applications or whatever, like, because it's hard to get into all that. So we just tried to basically ready people so that they can be their own,
Well, if you think
that doesn't have time, do you just sell the product?
That's what you need, like probably people, like young people like myself around the country that would be interested in, like, being actually up to speed with it, so that they can supplement the dairy farmer while he's trying to, but like, I'm not trying to be, there's loads of farmers who have implemented this, like the fella who actually brought this, Darragh, like he he's full time at it, like, and full time at the dairy farm, and he really shouldered the weight of this in the country, like, So if Tom Stack can be the undercover microbiologist of Limerick, then yeah.
But there's a massive opportunity with this for young people to do a bit of contract. The dairy farmer is there. He has the fertilizer bill, and there's your system instead, which is a fraction of the cost. He would be more than welcome if some young lad knew what he was doing to say, go out and make me IMO 1, 2, 3, 4, and like.
And that's why you see at the moment, like, it's just, you know what I mean. As I said, all the people that are implementing this, like, are they're farming, like, you know what I mean. I don't have any animals yet, and that gives me the flexibility. But it's like the people that, you can come in from any way of life. You don't have to be farming. I didn't grow up in a farm, like, you know what I mean. And I'm working in farms, so like maybe like the two boys here, like, if I get you up to speed, like, do you know what I mean, then you can be like the little mother mycelium node for your community. You can help push it in the right direction.
I absolutely love it. I love it. And if you give us a link to the course, what we'll do is put it up in the description of that, so we will.
Absolutely, and I'll give you a link to my website, and you can look me up as Luachra.ie, so Luachra, like, yeah, because I'm in Sligo, Luachra there, north of the Paps.
I'll get that off you anyway.
Yeah, sure, there's no panic anyway, and you can contact me for fermented plant extracts as well. I'm selling there at the moment. They're savage. Yeah.
Darragh, thank you very much for being with us. And follow us to Patreon. We're going to get more into depth on these materials. Let's hear how they work, what they do, what they can be used for. And thanks everyone for watching, and especially the Patreon users. Thanks very much for
absolutely. And
keeping
just
the lights
again, I think there is still a few camping tickets left for the Hooli. So James Conway exp.com. Come along.
It is only a few though. They're fairly well.
So look, you'll see this and plenty of more interesting stuff over the weekend. So yeah, get over there before they're gone. And we'll see you on Patreon.
Thanks, guys.
Hey.
Brilliant.